Welcome. This is part one of a 5-part series I'm calling the Baseline series. Here's the short version of what this is. I spent a large majority of my entire life, childhood, teenage years, a large majority of my adulthood. I'm 42, I'll be 43 soon. But I spent all of my life anxious, braced, waiting for some type of impact. I felt what I described as impending doom. If you've ever felt that, if you get what I mean when I say that. Waking up with dread in the middle of the night or the morning. Waking up filled with fear and anxiety. Over a period of years, I changed all of that. Not with some simple trick. I didn't do it overnight. It took time. But for real, I met my nervous system where it was at my baseline. And then over a period of time, gradually, I changed that baseline state of my nervous system. Along the way, I had to figure a lot out. I had to figure out how perception worked, why we often get stuck inside of our own perspective or perception of the world, what it is that actually changes someone, and what suffering is even all about. What's it for? That's what this series walks through. Part one is the map, how every single one of us lives inside of a world our mind builds. Part two is the door, how anything actually gets through to us and then changes us. Part three is the work, the practice. What I actually did day to day, practice to practice, what it is, what it looks like, and how I built my own practice, taking what some people call as interspirituality and taking what worked and discarding what didn't from many different practices. It's how the baseline gets rebuilt or shifted. Part four was the hardest one. It's about suffering and what we're allowed to make of it for ourselves and for others. And then part five, that's my story. Start to finish, how I got here and the road I built out of it. And look, you don't need to believe anything that I believe to get something out of this. Take what checks out against your own life. Leave the rest, but question all of it, especially me. That's the whole spirit of the thing, folks. Let's go. The tick. So I live in middle Georgia. It's summertime. There's lots of foliage and forest and woods and trees and lakes and all kinds of stuff around here. And right now, I'm sitting here in front of a wood line at a lake at a creek. In front of me, there are thousands, if not tens or hundreds of thousands, who knows, of ticks. Typically around here, they're deer ticks, but that really doesn't matter. So why am I talking about a tick? Well, for starters, right now, that tick is waiting. He's just sitting there. He or she is just sitting there waiting. And the tick is waiting for three things, specifically to sense and pick up on three things, and only three things. Number one, a chemical that it can smell that comes off mammalian skin, mammals. Number two, heat or warmth. And number three, physical touch, a physical sensation. That's it. That's the tick's entire world. Anything outside of that, the tick isn't aware of. It's not aware of the forest around it. It's not aware of the creek, that lake, pine straw, trees, flowers, bees, whatever. Tick's not aware of it because the tick can only sense those three things. That's the tick's entire world. The wind, the bird song, tick can't pick up on that stuff. And it's not because it's not there, it doesn't exist. It's simply again, because the tick can't sense it. Its whole reality is those three signals. Initially, I learned about this concept in a book by philosopher James D. Madden called Unidentified Hyperobject, but ultimately, he borrowed the idea of the umwelt from, who was he? Yeah, a German biologist named Jacob von Uexküll. And I apologize if I mispronounced that. Sorry for my southern, it is what it is. But Jacob called it the umwelt. And the umwelt is the world as it exists for a specific creature, given what that creature can sense and perceive. Every living thing has one. And here's the thing that should stop you for a second. So do you. Part one, the first world, the sensory umwelt. Everybody thinks they see the world. Everybody thinks they see reality. I don't. You don't. None of us do. We see our world and our reality. You can't see ultraviolet light, but a bee can. And a flower looks completely different to you and me than it does to that bumblebee. You can't hear the range of what a dog hears. You can't hear the dog whistle, but the dog can. You can't smell the blood in the water, but the shark can, right? Your eyes, your ears, your nose, it's all an aperture. And an aperture is a narrow slit opening onto something much bigger. An aperture is a narrow opening onto reality. And whatever's actually out there in its full, unadulterated, unrestricted form is much bigger than what we sense and pick up on. And that's the first world. That's the sensory umwelt. It's defined by your biology. It's the tick's 3 signals, but for us, it's just a much wider version, a much wider aperture. And it's, again, wider than a tick, but it's still just a narrow slice of reality. And most people never notice it. They never become aware of this. They don't realize that their perception of reality is simply an aperture. The same way a tick never notices the birds, the trees, the forest itself. That slice, that aperture, it feels like all of it, but it's not. That's level 1. Part 2, the second world, the interpretive umwelt layer. But here's where it gets interesting. Between two human beings, the hardware is basically the same eyes, same ears, same brain roughly. There might be different small characteristics, but overall, they're very close to carbon copies of one another. And you would think that two people standing in the same room or sitting in the same car would be in the same world together, but too often they're not, because there's a second world sitting on top of that first sensory umwelt layer world. And this one isn't built by your biology, it's built by your life and your experience. Think about it for a minute. Think about what made you, the culture you were born into, the language you think and speak in, how your parents treated you, how your grandparents treated you, how your teacher treated you, how your peers growing up treated you, what your church told you was true, what your education system told you was true, what your friends and family told you were true, what your pastor told you was true. Ooh, that's starting to get like a tongue twister. The things that hurt you, that traumatized you, that wounded you, the things that you loved and that loved you back. The hundreds of thousands of experiences that no one other than you will ever experience exactly the same. All of that built a lens for each one of us. And the lens doesn't determine what light hits your eyes or what senses you pick up from the physical world. This lens tells you what that light means, or what the things that you sense and you do pick up from the physical world, what those things mean. So let me make it a little bit more concrete. Let's take me and my wife for an example. Two different people with two very different experiences during the day. We have 4 children. I work, I do other things. She stays at home and takes care of the children. So my day and what I experience in my day 5 days out of the week is very different from what she experiences 5 days out of the week. And what I mean by that is I'm gone, I'm working, I'm in an office, I'm with a client, whatever. She's there with 4 children, 3 of them being very little, and she's doing that. So when I come home and I see the kitchen destroyed, food, dishes piled in the sink, chocolate milk and juice all over the countertops, not cleaned, remnants of lunch on the floor, all that stuff, as a male who processes things more analytically than emotionally, like a female, that's just biological difference there, going back to that sensory umwelt, I'm going to see chaos. Things out of order to me are a threat. But what my wife sees is completely different. She looks and sees the same stuff on the counter, but she just sees a home with 4 kids in it. 2 different people, the same room, looking at the same stuff, but with 2 different interpretations. They're not disagreeing about what we're not disagreeing about what we see. We're just interpreting it differently. And that's the second world. That's that interpretive umwelt layer. Your ego, your personality, that person that shows up on the surface. That is not the raw truth of reality. It's simply a constructed lens. And just like the tick doesn't know it's missing the forest, you don't know that your interpretation is just that, an interpretation. It just seems and feels like the truth. And this is why people misunderstand each other constantly. It's almost never about the actual facts. It's that those same facts land in 2 different worlds of meaning, interpretive meaning. And each person is kind of sealed off inside of their own. And they mistake their interpretive lens as reality of itself. And it's just not. Part 3, the third world, the base layer. So now we've got 2 worlds. The sensory aperture and the interpretive aperture. The lens built by your life and experience. But there's a third, and this one you don't find by thinking or trying. You find it by going quiet. Underneath the constructed reality, underneath the personality, underneath all the conditioning, the story of who you are, there is something there that was there before all of that stuff got built. And it's the awareness that's looking through your eyes right now. Not the thought, but the awareness itself. It's the bare fact of seeing, of being aware. Every contemplative and mystic tradition, esoteric tradition on earth found this. The Hindus called it the Sakshi, the witness. The Buddhists pointed at it by saying the self that you think you are is empty, and whatever's left is just awareness, and that's it. The Christian contemplatives and mystics called it the ground of the soul. Different names, different times, different peoples, different lenses, yet same discovery. And this is what's so staggering about it. The interpretive umwelt, the second world, it makes everybody different. Different cultures, different upbringings, different experiences day to day, different interactions with people, different treatment from people, all creates different lenses, all sealed off from one another. But when people go underneath it deep enough in practice, they keep arriving at the same place. And so have I. A monk in a cave in Tibet and a Christian contemplative in a monastery in Spain, separated by centuries or more, arriving at the same conclusions. This tells you the second layer, the second world, is a layer. It's not all of you, folks. There's something there underneath it that isn't built by your biology and isn't built by your culture and life experiences. And it's something common, and it may be common to all conscious beings. And that's the third world, the base layer. That's the only one that isn't an aperture at all. Part 4, the stack. So let's look at what we've actually got here. 3 worlds all stacked upon one another. The sensory umwelt, the aperture your biology gives you. The interpretive umwelt, the aperture your life experience and culture gave you. The sensory umwelt is what you can register at all. The interpretive umwelt is what you register means to you. And then underneath both is the base awareness, the baseline. The thing that was there before either of the other 2 lenses. The thing that's the same in everybody when you go deep enough. Almost all human conflict happens at that second interpretive level. 2 people sealed in 2 interpretive worlds, certain what they see is actual reality and the other person is wrong. And both unable to understand how the other person can see it differently than they do. When you look at it through the interpretive umwelt lens, it looks kind of ridiculous, you know? But marriages run aground here, religions, partisan politics, everyone defending a truth of a lens that they don't realize is constructed. And the way out isn't to win an argument or a war, it's simply to drop underneath all of it. To touch the third level where the lens all loosens. Where you can finally see your interpretation is just that, an interpretation. And you can meet the other person on the actual ground that's truly underneath you both. Probably the only thing that really is real. And this isn't spiritual nicety, spiritual bullshit, new age love and light. This is the actual mechanism. This is real. You can't meet someone across the gap at the level of the lens, right? Somebody on the far right and somebody on the woke left. They're never going to meet on that level. You can only meet them both underneath it. Part 5, the application. Now, I'm going to take all 3 of these worlds and I'm going to point them at the strangest question I know. If you know a little bit about me personally, I'll drop an article. I was interviewed by a writer named Greg Scaduto about a year ago. He wrote an article on my experiences. I'll drop it in the description. Feel free to read it. But that's my experience. I'm a lifetime UAP, UFO, NHI, whatever you want to call it, experiencer. It started in 92. I've had several big events in my life. So that's where I'm coming from when I say, let's point this at the weirdest question I know. What happens when we experience something or something contacts us that isn't human? People always ask and assume, are they all good? Are they all evil? Are they demonic? Are they here to help us? Are they a threat? I think all of those are the wrong question. I think most of the high strangeness about contact isn't about intent at all. I think it's about the umwelt. Because if something non-human does exist and it's real, it has its own sensory aperture and its own interpretive umwelt aperture. They have totally different hardware, possibly seeing dimensions that we can't detect on any sensory or physical level, even with instrumentation. And then, in the interpretive umwelt layer, they've built a lens and meaning out of everything that is probably so foreign and alien for us, we have no map for it at all. So the gap is now doubled, tripled, quadrupled, maybe more. 2 different sensory worlds, huge gap there, and then 2 different interpretive lens worlds makes the gap way bigger. No wonder contact is so bizarre, and it's earned this coined term, high strangeness. It's fragmented, can be dreamlike, almost impossible to pin down. It's because it's a translation failure across 2 umwelt layers at once. Think about your dog at the vet. He or she's terrified. They're being held down. They're having something stuck up their ass. They're getting poked with needles, prodded, handled by people wearing masks. Maybe they get muzzled because they get upset, get angry, snap when they get scared, you know? For all the dog knows, like, you've taken him to a dog meat factory and all of those people are there to kill him. The dog doesn't have the umwelt to understand veterinary care. And the terror isn't because the vet is evil. The terror is because of the gap at the umwelt layer. And a lot of what people report as frightening contact could be exactly that. Or it could be something different. Not malice, just a gap. Us on a table beneath lights with beings that we've never seen before, shouldn't exist, we've been told are fictional, looking down on us, filled with terror, yet no framework for what's happening, but rendering it all as fear. Because for that type of experience, fear is the only category in our interpretive lens that we have, that's suitable, that's there to be applied to the experience. But here's where the third world changes everything. If there is a base layer of awareness underneath all the lenses, and if it's not built by culture, it's not built by biology, but something more fundamental than either, then maybe it's not only human. Maybe awareness itself is the one thing that doesn't depend upon what kind of creature or thing you are. And if that's true, then the channel for real contact, the good contact, the kind that doesn't feel like the vet table, isn't through matching hardware, and it isn't through matching culture or experience. It's through the layer underneath both of them. The one place where translation does not fail. Awareness meeting awareness, underneath both apertures. That would explain why some contact is completely terror-filled, and some feels like being known, love even. The terror is the contact at the level of the lens, but the being known part is the contact underneath it. So we live in 3 worlds at once. That narrow aperture our body gives us, like the tick in the woods. The lens our life builds through our experiences, traumas, hurts, sufferings, all that stuff. Yet we mistake that for reality, and all of it. But then underneath both of them, there's the awareness that was there first, and might be the only thing we truly share with each other, and maybe with whatever else is out there. The tick has that one world. It will never know the forest. But we've got 3, and the deepest one, the one underneath all of our differences, is the one that we spend our whole life forgetting we have, and that's the one worth finding.